3.
Sound.
Test.
Are we good?
Is that good?
Let's see how this one roll out because this is our very first series about the forum. So
I'm going to do the millennial thing and share it onto Twitter.
I don't have my phone.
I know, thank you for your phone for the wait.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We keep everything definitely very organic.
Everything is,
So,
yeah.
You gotta
Did you share
copy link.
I'm good. I just need to go here.
Drop it in Twitter and make it happen, right?
Yep.
It's kind of the thing that for this week. Quite different. So, well, just get prepared to have everything that go on as well. I want to thank everybody watching this week's Coffee with Kyan. This is our very first episode for this series of the forum.
Yeah.
Yay! Woo-hoo. So today I have two special guests with
everyone.
me today. A little different structure. Want to introduce yourself really quick?
Go.
Okay. Jessica Lucia, Epic Specialist at IT Works.
Jamie Carlson, Epicor Specialist here at IT Works.
Right. I'm Kyan Wei, Director of Talent Acquisition, but you probably saw that there's a little tag in front of us, and then most people refer to class as of graduation, but you probably see the pacifier a little bit more because today our topic is talking about millennials. Mm-hmm. So each of us coming from a little different class and happened to be, it was a basic idea to start first and it turned into, happened to be all three of us are classified into the millennial stage, which is essentially from the year 1980 to 1981 and all the way through debatable 95, 96-ish.
Somewhere.
Yeah, we're kind of in this odd, interesting bubble of the generation as well. And today we're not talking about the labels and the differences and so on, but we're actually going to talk about the differences versus the labels because in the workplaces we're obviously all different personalities. But I know that this is a hot topic for most people, especially in the sales component, working with different personalities. So I think that's essentially our talking point in the discussion. So, how do you guys feel about when I approach you with this topic?
I got excited because I definitely think that millennials, for some older generations, have kind of a bad rep. And I always love to take the opportunity to kind of prove people wrong. So this is definitely a way to kind of get the word out that millennials, we may work differently, but definitely have some good things to offer.
So it's one millennial. What about the other one?
The baby millennial.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I think that similar to what Jamie said, we millennials get a very bad rap. We're often considered to be lazier in the workforce or distracted in the workforce. But I think that we just have learned how to adapt to a new age of technology and a new way of communicating. And I don't think that that is a negative thing. I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah, on my end is I have seen through my career as being the class of 1983. I started out obviously with mostly Gen X, and then I think worked in my career. Now I'm kind of somehow elevated into the one right in between as the earlier generation within the millennial category, and then I do find that every now and then I have that struggle of I'm not sure where I am because I feel like I have the mentality, working habit of so and so, but then I'm never big on labels. So hence I want to talk a little bit more about that, breaking through some of the stereotype, and people may agree, people may not agree. So in that consensus is while we're being filmed live, and I think anytime I raise a topic, we'll probably have a statement which essentially are the stereotype of, well, I found information, I will also quote the source as well. For all of us pick this together, and then after my statement, if you agree or disagree, if you agree, we'll do the noise maker. If you disagree, obviously, drop it or don't do anything. Okay. So I think we'll probably talk through some of the our life examples, especially in the workforce, especially in the sales environment. People talk about in recruitment, even in sales in general, working with our clients, working with customers, working with the candidates. The workforce is fairly large, but I'm going to start today. Give me 1 second. Let me do a quick sound check. Do you guys want to talk really quick?
Yeah. So we're going to be talking again. Kyan's going to go over different questions that Jamie and I and himself can talk about and discuss each one of our viewpoints. We're just doing a little bit of a sound check right now.
And I think we're going to have different viewpoints. Like Kyan said, he's one of the older millennials, and then Jessica's kind of in the middle, and then I'm on the tail end.
Yeah, and as far as classes go, we didn't each graduate these years. This is when we were born.
I'm not 42 years old.
Yes, I did not graduate in 1988.
I was born
in 88.
I think this is the power of social media, and this is why these gone on. I think why people are asking about, why do you guys have these years that you don't look 42, 47, or 55 years old based on the year you graduated? So we added a pacifier, and I'm glad that I raised that awareness. It's kind of funny that how everything works to create those conflict. And think if I step away to do a sound check, and I've been classified as the older millennial. But so according to things, the source of the Pew Research Center gave us statistics that as of 2015, millennials have surpassed Generation X as a dominant demographic workforce in the workforce. And then projecting that by 2025, millennial is going to make up the 75% of the workforce. I think this is also a driving force. As I saw this number, is we're now gradually transition into the model of the next generation. And then it's kind of crazy as I start onboarding people that are in the mid to late 90s. Were born in the mid to late 90s.
That makes me feel old.
Imagine when the 2000 mark comes in. I think another joke I made was two of my, I think the younger nieces were talking about just dating in general. And they were obviously born in the 2000s. And one of the conversation was that, wait, while you're dating something that was born from the last century, I literally have a microwave basically drop down on my head feeling. So, with that being said, I'm gonna start with some of the topics and then see if you guys agree or disagree. So please raise your belt. First statement is, millennials are lazy and slackers. Anybody want to testify to that?
That is false. I
think that often, I've had a conversation about this with a colleague of mine not too long ago. She works in nursing. Well, I guess not a colleague, but a friend of mine who works in nursing, and she works with one of the bigger hospitals here in Atlanta. And she had mentioned that her perception of millennials is that they are lazier in the workforce. And she started talking about how she'll see them texting on their phones, or she'll see most of it revolved around them being on their phones. And the point that I had made to her is often they're not texting, they're checking Twitter, or they're checking the news, or they're emailing someone. I know that I email clients and candidates all the time on my cell phone. And there are more things that you can do with your phone now than you used to be able to do. You could completely work remotely just off of your phone. And so I think that the perception of millennials to me is inaccurate when it comes to laziness, because they're making a judgment call, or people are making a judgment call based off of what they see, but often there's a lot more going on than what you can just see on the surface level.
Do you think that will be portrayed as not as focused?
I think that comes up sometimes, but I would disagree with that. I think that I might have more things going on at any given time, or I might be multitasking on a few different things, but it doesn't mean that I'm any less focused or unable to get my work done than somebody else who I guess was only doing one thing at a time. Often with the nature of our business is that while I have candidate A in an interview, I'll have candidate C going through final stages, and at the same time I'll be talking with a client about a contract that I'm negotiating with them. And you sort of have to be able to balance all of these different things and able to be successful. If I only focus on one thing at a time, I'm gonna fall behind on what I need to happen, next week or the week after.
And that's assuming that we're talking about the audience that are non-millennials or including millennials too.
For me, I think millennials, we grew up with technology, not necessarily cell phones. I got a cell phone when I was in middle school, which is very early for a lot of people. But I've learned to work smarter and not harder, and technology has had a really big impact on that. So something that would take a lot longer for someone to complete, say 10 years ago, I can now complete in a lot or millennials can complete in a lot shorter amount of time because of technology.
Right.
So it's not necessarily that we aren't focused or getting things done. We're just probably getting things done in a more efficient way or quicker way. No offense. No offense. But now that, and this goes for any generation, everyone's being able to work a lot more efficiently with technology. And I think it's very apparent since we grew up with it that it's part of the workforce.
The focus. Okay.
Speaking of multitasking, I have a client on the phone that I need to
it.
answer really quickly.
Amy, Jamie and I will handle it.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
All right. Speaking of multitasking, actually brought to my next point. Do you agree that millennials are more tech savvy?
Yes and no, because it's hard to answer because I'm not very tech savvy. I know like how to use an iPhone or like certain things that my parents don't know how to use, but my parents are also baby boomers. So, but the generation before Gen X, they're very tech savvy people within that generation. And so it's hard to compare apples to oranges when it comes to something like that because they've also had more time to learn it. But I think with the growing age of technology, we will be a little bit more tech savvy just because we grew up with it. We had a computer in my kindergarten classroom, so.
And speaking of which, because we're actually happen to be in IT recruitment, and a lot of people that we place are subject matter experts. So obviously have you seen much the workforce from the millennial stage, as how they classify it?
Some. My specific software is mainly a manufacturing software. It's Epicor, it's an ERP system, and a lot of manufacturers use it, and so there's not a lot of millennials in that type of business. But I know probably with like Salesforce, yet. I have talked to actually a good bit, and they are very good at what they do. So they just are trying to get that experience behind them in order to, that's kind of where I think a lot of the millennials are at with the tech industry. They're needing that experience and trying to gain that ground. But from the ones I've spoken to, they're very, they're great, yeah.
Okay. We're going to move on with the next point, actually. This is a statement actually coming from one of the research from the Huffington Post. The next statement is, millennials are job hoppers and they don't stay around. What do you think that people have that perception?
Millennials have a lot of interests. That's kind of where.
Speaking for yourself or all your.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I love recruitment. I've been doing this I did it right out of college, which I graduated 2 years ago in 2015. So it's not like I've been
10 years ago. No, 12 years ago.
Oh, you're aging yourself.
Well, it's right here.
But I also worked for a nonprofit, and I love sports. I grew up playing sports. I have that interest. I have interest in a lot of things. So I think millennials are trying to find their niche in the world, is why they can be perceived as job hoppers, because there's so many different things that they like and can do, and of course they can find anything and everything online, and learn more about it. They're like, oh, that's really interesting, I want to learn more about that, but I'm working this job right now. So millennials get very passionate about what they do, and so I think it just kind of is a trade-off. But millennials are also very loyal once they find something, at least from my experience.
So how do you see that as, if they're interested in many things but also passionate about, in this case, probably many things, how does that come down to, how do we keep them focused or engaged in the task or tasks ahead of them?
I think it's hard to say, like, because for me, I mean, my personality is very different from someone else, but for me, I like to have a sense of direction, like kind of an endpoint, and for me to find a way to get there. So we have that freedom and the ability to kind of work our own way to get to the endpoint, rather than the certain structures that have been set in the past, kind of giving us the freedom to do that.
Okay. Do you think that freedom is important?
Yes.
How so?
For myself, I definitely work kind of on my own time. So that's why I really enjoy IT Works, because we get to kind of own our own business and work through, no one's telling me like I have to call this many candidates in the morning, but I can contact my client, contact my candidate, write up contracts, or I can like call companies. Like I can plan out my own day, but I'm still getting to the same result, which is why I think that this environment has been so great for millennials like myself and Jessica, and a couple others here. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So how do you think that, what are the important traits or important things that for working with a millennial? And I'm talking about essentially and everybody else. It could be millennials, it could be from individuals from other generations, in order to work with millennials.
What do they need?
What do we need?
Trust.
Trust.
I feel like the bad rep thing about millennials are kind of getting a bad rep. Just have a little faith in us that we are still learning and getting experience in the working world. I mean, it's not easy jumping right from a 4-year college into a big kid job, as I like to call it.
A grown-up job.
Yeah, but we understand what responsibility is, and so definitely just cutting us a little bit of slack and trusting us. That's my thought. I don't know.
So we're talking about actually, what do you think as a millennial that other people would need? What do you need from others in order to work with you? And then the others can be from any other generation, not just millennials. What do you need?
What do I need in a balanced work environment?
No, as a millennial, what do you need in order to be successful?
For me, something that's really important is a balance between like work and personal and like overall lifestyle. So something that I really appreciate is being able to get the work that I need to get done when I need to get it done, or being a little bit flexible or open on that. So something I like about what we do is that we're business managers for each one of our industries and markets, and ultimately, you have a team who supports you, which is fantastic. I think support in a workplace is something that is definitely essential for me. Feeling like you're heard, your feedback is heard, you're working together, collaborating together as a team, is something that really helps to keep me going in a workplace, especially when there's like stress involved, because we're working with people, and people are wonderful, and we get to talk with candidates about what they want and new opportunities, which is always really exciting for me. But on the flip side, emotions can get involved when a candidate, for example, might not want to relocate in the end, and so talking through what's ultimately best for your client and what ultimately is best for your candidate, it's good to be able to talk that out with your team members who know exactly what you've been working with for however long you've been working on it for. So collaboration and support is important for me. Like I said, overall lifestyle and sort of balance, knowing that I'm in charge of my own business for its success and its failures is also important to me.
So I think that's actually the point I was trying to discuss next. Is both you raise a valid point, but I was going back to talk about the grown-up job thing. My dad still doesn't know what I do, and he still think that I'm gonna come to awakening one day to find a real career. And I was like, well, you've been doing this kind of for 12 years. And then he still doesn't quite see how that whole thing works. So with that being said, next point is, this is a source actually coming from the Huffington Post. Okay. The statement of a stereotype of millennial is, millennials work to live versus live to work. Agree or disagree? Goodness gracious. Let me restart. Millennials work to live versus live to work. So agree or disagree?
Wait, which one are we agreeing
They work
with?
to live.
But they don't live to work?
Yeah.
They work to live, not live to work.
Okay, great.
Yeah. They work to live.
Yeah, they work to
So how so? Do you think that's a true statement, or that's...
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I mean, well, just as for myself as an example, I mean, one of the things that drew me to this specific position was the opportunity to start earning commissions based off of who I'm placing in a position. I mean, like Jamie said, it's the money, and the reason why I'm working as hard as I'm working is because I want to pay for vacations, or I want to pay off student loans, which is I know is a huge problem for millennials, or a huge thing that we all are struggling with, or a lot of us are struggling with.
Payments, loans.
Yeah, paying for student loans. So I want to pay those down faster so that I'm not paying them off forever. And I also want to travel with my friends. Like, we just recently went to Vancouver, and we're going to be going to Toronto soon. And so for me, life is about experiences and the memories that you sort of like collect with the people who are important to you.
Yeah.
What about you?
I 100% agree. The money thing is definitely important. Just like student loans, I have a car payment. Rent in Atlanta is pretty expensive, and but also I think I would take a lower paying job. And I know a lot of my friends agree with this, for a little bit of freedom, I guess. I worked retail for a little bit in between, right after college, before I went into recruitment, and working weekends really got to me. I don't know why, but having that freedom to work
Reset.
my job and reset on the weekends, and but also like the hours, I mean, it's give and take, I guess, with millennials. They want their cake and they want to eat it too.
How do you think that? But how do you think that make others perceive us being? And I'm talking about, you may have managers, people who are, or business owner who are you're reporting to, are millennials too.
Well,
How do you think that would be perceived?
yeah, I mean,
Greedy.
I think...
Greedy?
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that kind of goes back to the perception of laziness, right? Because I knew that my priorities are different from my parents' priorities. I love my parents, but our priorities are different. Now that they're in Oregon and post-retirement and working at jobs that they really, really enjoy, that are not more leisurely, but aren't your typical 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 position. Our goals kind of line up a little bit more now than they did when I was back in college, but I think our priorities are different than the workforce from 10 years ago or 20 years ago, who they lived to work.
That was what they did. They woke up, went to work. And I think it's changing for everyone. I mean, just this day and age. But woke up, went to work, came home, had dinner, went to bed. But for millennials, we enjoy our social time. We get the job done, of course. I'm not I won't leave here until if I have something going on. I've stayed till after 7 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock before, and then gone home and worked. So, but we also will leave here at a normal time and go out to dinner with friends, and we're more along the lines of being social while getting the job done.
Yeah, and I think that the perception is that, or not the perception, it's just, like I said, it's priorities. At the end of the day, I know at the end of my life, I'm not going to say, I wish I had worked more. I'm going to say, what did I do with my family? What did I do with my friends? I'm not going to say I wish I had spent one more hour at work. I'm going to say, how much time did I spend with my grandpa? Or how much time did I spend, talking with my grandma during the week on the phone? That's important to me.
Or what places did you see?
Right.
Yeah, for me, it's about experience.
Yeah,
That's
experience.
more important
That's definitely,
than the
I think,
hours that I put in.
And even, I haven't traveled a lot, but just experiences, just small experiences in life. You love to go eat places, those small experiences. I love to go hiking, go out and see different things like that.
Yeah, but with that being said, the priority for me is to be able to do that. I need to achieve the things that that I can afford to do so.
Right.
But I think that. Yeah, I personally think I agree with that statement to state, because obviously that money is not everything.
Yeah.
But I do personally believe that if without money you can't do anything. Actually.
Yeah.
Not,
I mean, right. Money's
Yeah.
not everything, but in order to do the things that I like to do, like travel, I need money.
Yeah.
Work to live.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So with that, my next thing is, I think we may get into a debate. So I'm going to have everybody raise the bell again. This is Kim from the urbanbound.com. Thank you for your contribution for the statement of millennials hold a sense of entitlement. Agree or disagree?
A sense of entitlement? I don't know. Well,
I don't know if I should have rang that or spun that.
I think it depends. I devil's advocate. I think it depends on the context of that. On social media, for sure, the sense of entitlement that I see between complete strangers talking to complete strangers, or the amount of tweets that I see people sending to actors or actresses or like other people about
so
what
funny,
they
though.
deserve back from them is ridiculous.
But I don't think a lot of people are like, it's because of the participation trophies, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that has anything to do with it.
No.
I think we have access to a lot more information.
Yeah.
And so that has a thing. But, I mean, I literally just said we want our cake and we want to eat it too. Because we want to have the money, we want to travel, but we also want to have a good job. And so it's, I don't know.
I think we want, we want little pieces. We want little pieces of every pie.
That goes back into the multiple interest thing, though.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So I guess honestly, I think it's all about attitude. I think that if you're gracious but want multiple pieces of the pie, then I think that's fine. If you're
the entitlement, I think, comes in from attitude.
Yeah.
But what it comes down to the frustration, maybe not even frustration yet, about if you can get everything. I think a lot of people see then it becomes the end result of when you can get everything.
Yeah.
That people start seeing the behavior that contribute into having that perception of a sense of entitlement.
Which I guess comes back to, like Jamie and I said, attitude. It's all about attitude, because I know people who, by all appearances, seem to have everything, like great job, great apartment, great family, like a dog. They go on vacations. They, by outward appearances, it feels like they have everything, but they also are extremely generous. They volunteer. They give of their time to friends and to family. They're the first to say, let me help you out with A, B, or C. But then on the flip side, I know other people who, by all appearances, also have everything and are take it all for granted and feel like they deserve whatever the next thing is. And I don't know if that's a specific generational thing. I think that's sort of like an everyone thing.
So what happens when that translates into doing business? If you don't get what you want a piece of pie for everything, right? If you can reach that superstardom that, people have been in the industry for decades and build that name of, I've been here for 27 years, so and so. I think that would the end result comes back into.
You definitely have to put the work in.
Yeah. For, I guess, in staffing, I think with millennials, we have a lot of feelings. A lot of them. I'm included.
Do we?
Just a little. And I mean, I've almost cried today because of stuff. Like,
oh gosh, I
just
for sure cried about things.
It's
before.
just like,
and I may or may not have made them cry.
Yeah.
But it's just like we do care a lot, but there's just so much feeling wrapped up in work.
Yeah.
I don't even know where I was going with that.
Can't stop these feelings anymore.
But I mean, being a millennial in the workforce it has its trials and tribulations.
Yeah, I think partially is the sense of entitlement come from also the differences. I think everybody really, really needs that individualism to be recognized, and then and I think it projects in its worst form when they don't get what they want, when we don't get what we want.
Yeah.
And then we can't always get what we want. I think that, how do you think that we can either work on, or how can we manage that process when you don't get what you want? And I think there are many aspects of things.
I always think of like short-term memory with sports and stuff. I was a goalie in lacrosse, and so I just always thought like when one goal went in, I had to forget about it and just move on to the next one. And I don't think that always translates to
translates well
back to work. So just having kind of like that short-term memory, learn from your mistakes, and I don't think we always do that as millennials. We kind of will dwell on what's going on and everything. So but just rolling with the punches and not getting too hard on ourselves, I think is good.
So I think that for others who are watching right now, let me see. Let me start from the sort of generation, working with, for me, myself, that you have somebody that in a different capacity that are millennial to millennial. What are your suggestions on working with another millennial when you have so much feelings, interest, personality, things that you want to fight back?
I think, so biggest thing is establishing what are the rules up front, because I think that,
common ground.
Yeah, well, I think that, sorry guys,
It's all right.
I know it's difficult to hear because of all the feedback in the background.
We'll try to make this work.
Yeah. We apologize. So we have a very open office, which is something that we're very grateful for because it's awesome. But also it can be a little bit more challenging to hear sometimes because,
even when we're working,
because we have an open office
on the phone.
Yeah.
So how is that like too? We'll leave that in a second after. Let's finish this one first.
Advice.
Working peer-to-peer with
peer-to-peer
millennials.
Okay, so working peer-to-peer, so establishing the ground rules. I think that something that I have learned from past professional experiences is that especially when you work in a close-knit group or a smaller group, often the line between like what's too much information and what's not enough information can be blurred, and so the line between personal and professional, I think, can get blurred often between our generation. Mm-hmm. That's something that
because we like to make our friends are at work,
right?
Like our colleagues are our friends.
Yeah. So I think having clear lines for me is really important, like what's appropriate to talk about, what's not appropriate to talk about work, because previously, like in my parents' generation, for example, like you would never talk about your life outside of work. Maybe occasionally talk about like what Susie and the kids are doing on the weekend with you and or whatever, but
hi Susie.
Yeah, hi Susie. But not but now it's like we tell each other like a lot of
everything from what you ate last night, how you washed your dishes,
what
movies you saw,
where you went,
if you're seeing somebody new, like etc. And I think setting up those lines so you know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate is really important.
Yeah. And I think we do a pretty good job about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I mean, we do have to catch ourselves being like, probably shouldn't
oversharing.
Yeah. But I mean, just becoming friends is always a good thing. But then it can also be a bad thing because you can't like tell them.
Transparent. I mean, it's kind of ironic that we just said that because I'm about to say transparency is really important. To me, I know transparency within business is important. Like, I want to know, sometimes too much information is too much information, but I think that it's important to know, like, what the direction of your company is, where you plan on growing in the future, what you want to do with your team. I think that that's something that our generation really seeks is making sure we know what's going on with our companies so that we can determine whether or not we still believe in the mission, vision, and values, because I know that that's important to us. Like whenever I'm having conversation with friends about new jobs that they're in or what they're doing, it's usually about what the company is all about, and most often my friends are usually talking about either what the job can help them achieve in their personal lives or what do they believe in about their company, what's their company doing that they feel passionate about or feel like they can stand
so it's
with.
About a lot of clear direction that's needed, but also camaraderie too.
Yeah
Within the workforce. So now for others, I hate to put this in a more corny term, I think it's probably the most common things that people will ask too is now for how to manage millennials if you're from a different genre or generation. Well, as millennials, what do you think that we would need?
We've had a couple of these conversations.
Yeah.
It's hard to put into words.
Yeah. I've not
See?
I've not managed per se, but I've managed people who are older than me before. I used to be the project director at a marketing communications agency, and I was the youngest person on our team, and I think that can often be a really difficult field to navigate at first, especially if you're not, as confident or as assertive. And so you learn really quickly, or I learned really quickly, that you have to be assertive in a situation like that in order to manage well. I don't really know if that answers the question or not.
I think partially it does. I think it shows also the bits and things that you're looking for.
Yeah.
The emotions, the feeling shows too.
I think ultimately the point is that you don't have to be older in order to be more experienced in a specific industry or market. And so who manages who is different now. It used to be like you were managed by someone who was significantly older or was male.
It's not always, in our cases, they're older, like Gary and Ray. I mean, Kyan, you're up there, but you're not up there like in age, but and
continue.
I think they've adapted pretty well to managing millennials.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's difficult because we do vary in what our wants and needs are. Like mine are very different from Jessica's, whatever. And then Kian's, yours are different as well. So just kind of being flexible in a sense of how that goes. I'm not making any sense.
No, you're making sense.
I think that historically it used to be a food chain. I think what most people are used to, especially looking at org charts specifically. But now we're seeing more and more things are going to different directions. Yeah. And then a lot of times it's really a mutual process. As we're learning something, and so are the individual or in the leadership capacity. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes that's how things move on too. I want to share a little bit of my personal experience too, because I think that was third, fourth year in my career. I was managing something that was older than me, mm-hmm. and not by that much older. I think she's probably watching this right now. But probably by a couple, 2-3 years, and that was really very, very special experience for me. Mm-hmm. To manage somebody, because you always think that your boss is older, and when you start working with people and mentoring somebody that, sometimes it's not an age thing, sometimes it may come down to your life experience. Mm-hmm. And then not everybody graduate from high school or college at a certain time of year and things. And I think that have that respect for each other, and then understand, listen, and know each other's differences and acknowledge those. I think that I mentioned a couple of different verbs, but to really do that, it's challenging. Mm-hmm. And to roll that out, really. So, cool. How do you enjoy this topic so far?
It's a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Like, thinking about it. I was like, I was so excited. I was like, yes, I get to talk to the fact that millennials aren't lazy. We do want to work hard and be successful. But I didn't think about everything that went into that. The whys. Like, why do we want to be successful? How are we going to be successful? Who is going to be beside us as we're successful? Mm-hmm. And just kind of wrapping, my millennial mind around all of that.
Yeah.
And, kind of taking it all in for my own, benefit, and trying to figure out how I would work best with other millennials, mm-hmm. too. And if I ever do get into a management or mentor or some type of mm-hmm. position, mm-hmm. It's a lot, and it's exciting though. So, I'm so awkward.
You're okay. You're good.
I embrace it. It's fine.
Yeah, you're fine.
So
that's who you are.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
That's cool.
Brand Jamie. No, I think it really well. I was actually just thinking now while you were talking about how one of the other things that's different. It all comes back to priorities again. But like as an example, my dad at my age now already had me.
Yeah, I thought about that.
Yeah,
I've been reminded many times.
Yeah. No, actually, my parents are really great about that. But extended family, not always. Love you guys.
Please like or share.
Yeah.
And comment.
No, I mean, at my dad, when he was, I was born when he was 27. I'm 29 now. He was already married and had a family and was working on, my more family or whatever, and that obviously shifts your priorities as well. You don't always get to work the job that you want to work when you have to support other people. Sometimes you just have to do whatever you can to put the bacon on the table. I'm in a very luxurious situation where I only have to think about myself and my roommate to make sure that we're making like the bills every month to stay where we live and eat. He provides for himself, but like rent obviously is like a joint effort. But that goes back to priorities.
I mean, I just have a dog, and I mean, I think that's what a lot of millennials are going towards now. I read an article the other day on it. Like a lot of millennials are getting dogs instead of kids. And it's,
I'm okay with that.
I know. Yeah. So I mean, it's very. I mean.
Yeah.
And I think about my friends. I'm like, that is very accurate.
Yeah.
And I mean, my dog is. He can stay at home while I go to work. I can't just leave a kid at home. They need to be in daycare. They have to be in school. Different things like that. So definitely the priority thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I can see how that could potentially be perceived as being, I guess, lazy or entitled or all of the other things that millennials are called, but.
Just different.
It's just different. Like we're getting married later, having kids later, working later in life. Someone left the fridge open. That's what that noise was. So yeah, I don't know. I think I enjoyed talking about it. I think it's a good thing to talk about, especially because, like you said, the majority of the workforce right now is millennials. So. What do you need to do in order to make sure that your target employees are happy?
Okay. We'll do a final closing remark. Let's see if we all agree to this. So, let's see. Millennials needs to be listened, understood, and then be respected, and also to give the same thing in return. All right. We'll end it here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching Coffee with Kyan. We'll be back next week.